Right now, we bring to you NFL data scientist and woman who trusts her math. It is Cynthia Frelund right here on The Fan. How are you today?
I'm great. It's great to see you guys. I hope everything's going well. And, no news in Dallas. Nothing going on there, huh?
Yeah, never, right? We have some speculation that during the Nico Harrison press conference that Jerry will announce that he's traded up to pick 2 to go ahead and get Travis Hunter so he can really just shatter the news cycle.
I mean, that's one way. I'd rather that feels like that might be like a bit of a happier story. How about that? We like positive news.
Absolutely. Now, I'm positive you're going to love this story. Corey booked you for the show because we had a great time talking with you at the Super Bowl. But then Carter is the one who asked you to be on Zoom, not because of technical reasons, but Corey was too nervous to ask you for more since you are big and famous and had already agreed to do our show.
I mean, first of all, you can always ask. We're best friends now.
Yes, we are.
That's what happened.
That's true.
And that's what the best friends do. Like, obviously, listen, any friend of Jane Slater's a friend of mine. I told you that before. It remains. Next time you can ask me. It was nice to talk to Carter, though.
He's great.
Happy to do it. But, the answer is always yes.
Okay, good. All right. I feel better now. Yeah. I just didn't want to pile on all the things, I didn't want to just continue piling on. Hey, can you come join us?
I wanted to pile on and make fun of him then.
It happens.
We've heard a lot about, like, going years and years ago, the Jimmy Johnson trade value chart. And in more recent years, I heard a lot about Rich Hill's value chart for the trades and everything. Has there been another even more updated or different formula for draft pick values? And how does that change in a draft like this where a lot of people are like, hey, 10 through 40, give or take about the same? Like, how do you adjust for that?
The only adjustment I would make, I actually think the Jimmy Johnson one is, to me, still probably the closest, most accurate one. Now, you could look at it relative to where your specific team is drafting, but you got, like, holistically, it's the most important and the most relevant one. On a pick by pick basis, if I need a quarterback and you need a defensive end, then you could maybe have like a 2 or 3 point different, whatever, right? Like, just based on need. But the only difference really to me is that 5th year that you get for the first round that wasn't factored in during when these trade charts were evaluated. So the at least temptation to trade back into the first round to get the 5 most expensive player positions and specifically quarterback, that now becomes more interesting, especially in this particular draft. The Browns at 33, it would be almost like silly of them not to trade back. I mean, the Eagles are always open for business, as we know, and even the Chiefs, right? So to get that extra year of leverage at the most expensive position in all of football.
Do you think there's any chance then, and I know I'm going to jump to a higher number, that we could maybe see 5 quarterbacks taken in the first round? Because for the longest time, it was Cam and Shador. But then you're hearing buzz about, obviously, Jackson Dart, Milroe being at the draft. Some people assuming that means he's going to be a first-round pick. And now Shuck kind of fitting in that idea of, well, if you're going to take him at 33, why not take him at 32?
I mean, I don't think 5. I think 5 is an aggressive number given the amount of defensive ends in this class specifically. Because, like I said, those 5 most expensive positions, this is a great defensive front class. I don't know if a defensive tackle would command the same sort of cachet to jump back up into the end for, but a defensive end certainly would, because they get paid a nice amount. Right. You also know about that in Dallas. Yeah.
I don't, because we haven't paid ours yet. Yeah. So I don't know what you're talking about.
True, you don't know about it. What you do or you don't, whatever the do or don't is, you do have some framework from which to determine the defensive end market. So having another year for that is favorable. So that could be the wrench in it. I mean, my favorite stat of this whole draft is that Tyler Shuck played with Justin Herbert at Oregon. Mind blown. But ultimately, I know that's an insane thing, craziness. But I think that this is a draft where I just don't know if I see a team coming back in for Shuck or Milroe, for that matter, in the first round, because I feel like the bulk of the Friday is going to be the day. If your team nails Friday, then you're going to you have done yourself the best service you can do in the draft. And that rounds 2 and 3, to me, that is the linchpin of this draft.
That is kind of, Kevin, and you and I've tried to figure out a chart that would put by position, like for quarterback, it's a 10. For running back, it's whatever, and we've been trying to figure that out, but it seems like every year that would change. Would that be true for your models?
It really depends also on your cap situation. I mean, if you're paying, like if you're the Texans right now, you have flexibility to make more bonehead picks than other teams because you're paying Will Anderson and CJ Stroud minimum. If they don't fix their O-line, they're doing it wrong, right? Like the point being is it kind of depends on your specific situation. If you're in the fortunate position where you're not paying a quarterback the top dollar market and you're still getting performance that's in the upper echelon, you have a little bit more flexibility. So the trading then becomes, can you find a trade partner? And that's where the whole thing, the volatility of the market really matters and the scarcity of the position really gets factored in.
Talking with Cynthia Frelund right here on 105.3 The Fan. We've talked about on a draft by draft basis how the economy of the draft kind of changes. I know quarterbacks always, it feels inevitable that they start rising up the board. But this year, it feels like running back has really kind of risen up the board. And we've gone from, a month and a half, 2 months ago, it felt like Genty to the Cowboys was the most mortal lock in all of the draft. And now there's rumblings he could go as high as number 5, and maybe Omarion Hampton would be in the mix. Like, are you surprised to see the stock go up on just running back as a whole in this draft?
Perception is reality. And the fact that we don't have a lot of guys at the quarterback position or even the wide receiver position for that matter, the number that we've had at both of those positions in recent drafts have just been ridiculous. It's been such a glut at wide receiver that it just, I think that the fact that there aren't as many means that you can push up other positions. Also, guys like Jahmyr Gibbs have proven that a first round running back isn't a bad deal. And perhaps it's paying the second contract or even third contract, Saquon Barkley, that's where you have to do it right. Because the reason the Eagles were able to get such value for that situation was Saquon, now it's not true, but last year Saquon had the same contract as Darnell Mooney from the Falcons. So a little bit different production wise. So I think the perception and now, the NFL is a pendulum. We swing back and forth, and now we've seen running backs be more impactful. So it's really getting the payment right for the production. In
terms of Omarion Hampton, then, what do you feel about his kind of ceiling and floor, since this is a name that has started to pop up more with the Cowboys? Not to say they wouldn't go wide receiver at 12, but what do you think about Hampton?
I like Hampton. He's a 3-down guy. I mean, this is a really, my like spidey sense goes up because the only thing here is that could you get something not maybe as good, but almost he's like top tier. Absolutely. He'd be a great addition to any club. They're going to be happy with whoever gets him. But the question is because there are so many running backs in this class that are good, could you get him in? Could you get a maybe lesser one in the
Henderson
second round
or whoever?
Like, because you got to remember who's going to be available or who isn't, or et cetera. Like, I mean, like if Will Johnson somehow fell to go, like there could be some good pieces, like of even bigger need that could fall there. Like, I wouldn't even be mad if, like, can you figure out how to get Tyler Booker? Like, you need to figure out your O-line. Everything else is a nice to have. When you have a quarterback and you have that wide receiver and there's some pieces, it all needs to start from the trenches. Otherwise, it's going to be really hard on whomever's there.
Yeah, I think we've kind of come to the conclusion that, like, we all were very high on Genty being there, back in February. And when we saw your mock draft that said that, so we just listened to you. And since then, like, it's fluctuated, it's changed a lot. And I think a lot of us now are kind of stuck with Tet. We're like, okay, wide receiver, big wide receiver, good opposite of CeeDee Lamb. It's a nice little combination. And then we hear, man, they really like Matthew Golden. And so we're kind of trying to figure out, okay, well, which one of those guys is the right one? And is wide receiver even the right position to get? Because you may be able to get, somebody out of Iowa in the second round or somebody else there. So maybe first round offensive line, cornerback kind of thing.
I mean, I if it's me, I would pick O-line every day and twice on Sunday, but that's just because I feel like in this draft, we talk about scarcity. I don't This is not a great O-line class compared to the ones we've seen in recent years. And it's in part, maybe they'll turn out to be great, but there's a lot of volatility because the transfer portal made it so that these guys the playbooks are this thin now. And they're playing 8 games, 9 games in a season. So find me a pulling guard. I will wait. Like that's where you have some opportunities there to really, like, the few that are good, go grab them and work from there, because it's hard to project that kind of transition to the NFL.
In that world, though, of those, Luther Burden's another name that we could throw in that conversation. Out
Missouri,
out of those 3, what are your thoughts on what they are and how their production is? Because it's uniquely different with all 3 of them.
Yeah, I mean, Emeka Egbuka, to me, the Ohio State wide receiver, he's the cleanest route runner. He's the guy who, I'm sure that you could say there's some overlap between what he and CD does, but I think that's where good coaching comes into place. And in this modern NFL, the opportunity to have a guy be exactly where you need him to be, right when he needs to be there, is really, really interesting. Luther Burden he's kind of a polarizing name. People love him, or they think he's like, I've heard first round, I've heard third round, which is typically not. I usually hear like late first, early second. You don't hear like first or third. So that one's interesting too. And Matthew Golden, obviously, his is interesting because you have to watch all of the film in a way that takes into account what Texas was doing, because his production, the pure stats aren't like, whoa, he had 7 billion touchdowns, like not like that. And they used him in a way that would be nice for the Cowboys to have, but not necessarily one that you can say, oh, again, it's a projection here. And that's how we have to see, projection wise, how do you think that would fit? That's where those 30 visits come into play, because then you can get them in the room, you can teach them a play, they can draw it back for you, and at least you can see if the concepts are something that resonate with them or not.
Now, the other day, the Lions GM talked about how you can get in trouble chasing needs in the draft. As Cowboys fans, I'm sure every franchise feels this way. We feel like we've seen that over the years, and that's a great thing to say, but I feel like when the draft is actually happening, teams still fall into that trap all of the time.
Yeah, I mean, well, listen, I can't believe, as a native Michigander, I cannot believe I'm even saying this, but I'm going back to the point I made before. It's like when you have a nice O-line, you don't have to chase the needs as much, because whether or not you get wide receiver 3 or whatever, like that really helps. And while I agree that teams can get into trouble chasing for needs, not having a keen eye on the availability of positions in free agency, and then when you finally come to, the draft, that's where you can get in even more trouble. Because if you're saying, oh, wow, there's, people love Abdul Carter, right?
Yes.
They see Micah Parsons. I do not see Micah Parsons. I know he wore 11. I know they went to the same college. I don't think he's Micah Parsons. I think he has 1 year of production, and he's nowhere near as bursty. But I think he's very good. You could get distracted. To me, he in the wrong spot. I don't know if if I'm the Giants, what do I do? Do I take him or not? Because to me, he's not plug and play in the same way as Micah. Like, again, he's very good, and he is very much worth being a very high draft pick. But what about all of your other needs? Do you then forego the opportunity to get 3 players, and maybe you get a defensive end in the second round? Like, these are things where it's just a little bit, it's tricky, because you have to have one eye on there's no, like, who are the defensive ends sitting out there waiting to get on your team?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you gotta, maybe you can find one, but
You're
probably
right.
not. How much does a coaching change throw a wrench into what you're thinking about a team? Because a team's draft philosophy might be this, and then Schottenheimer and Eberflus come in, and maybe they have a different thing, and maybe that helps them a little bit in this draft, because people may not know exactly what they're looking for.
I think that's part of the reason why we see a lot of coaches kind of get new jobs different places. They go back and forth. But I think the coaching regime changes based on larger scale philosophies. For example, we've seen it with duo. So like running backs who want to run like up the middle of the field. Some coaches just won't do that, period, full stop. Like when's the last time you seen Andy Reid do that?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. But then other guys are very adaptable year over year. So, that's interesting. And then you have older coaches like Pete Carroll getting back into the league, and that will change the cadence and the culture and what's available for the Raiders. So you have, it depends on the person, and it depends on the philosophy, and it depends on how they've evolved or haven't evolved. So like, I think Eberflus will be an even better coach now than he was before, a better defensive, like he's back. Right. So yeah, I think he'll be even better now, given everything that he's learned along the way. But I don't know if you don't sign Michael Parsons, it's not going to be easy for anyone to succeed, let alone it's not like Matt Eberflus is going to come in and be like, I can coach us out of not having, you'll sign him, but
because if so, great. Let's get those trade assets.
Yeah, exactly. Who's when the pick happens, the player, the team that's going to change and shuffle where do you think it's going to go? Okay, now the trades are going to start happening.
I hope that it happens at 8, because that would be exciting. Someone jumping with Carolina Panthers have said they're open for business.
Yes.
If I'm the Panthers, I'm taking any call possible, because they have a bunch of needs. They don't need quarterback, and they've got a bunch of other needs. And bodies. You can say, all right, here, want to come up, and do you maybe want to Shador Sanders this up before the Saints take him or not? Right. So I'd be like stalking the Browns, being like, you guys want him? Like, what are you doing? Come up from 33.
I like that. I like that. Now, you mentioned you're a native Michigander, which I did not know that is how we
never heard that
pronounce
before either, but we're from Texas, so.
2 questions. Since I've been to this place, have you been to Holland, Michigan?
Of course.
Okay, and have you seen the movie Holland starring Nicole Kidman, which is about a serial killer in Holland, Michigan?
No, but now I need to, because I love serial killers, and I love
Nicole
Kidman.
You might want to rephrase the way you just said
on that.
Serial killer movies are great.
In the future, that's not how we'll hear that cut from you again.
Later in the week, and it's going to be good.
But yeah, I've been to Holland, Michigan. Can you back me up on this? They make wooden shoes and stuff in the shops, because they didn't believe me when I said that.
Yeah, so it's like I think it's the highest concentration of Dutch settlers in the U.S., and if I'm not mistaken. So they have the Tulip Festival, they have the wooden shoe, they do the whole thing. It's actually very, like, the Tulip Festival you've missed it now if you haven't already gone, but it's beautiful.
See?
Well, now I guess I have to believe you, because Cynthia Frelund told us to. So I appreciate that. And again, at the Super Bowl, she said, I trust my math and the Eagles are going to win. And she was right.
Man,
so
did they ever.
Yeah.
Math does not care about your feelings.
To look like that, but I did,
I like it. Math conquered Patrick Mahomes. That is what I took away from that Super Bowl. Thank you very, very much for jumping on with us. Next time, we'll encourage Corey to ask you personally to be on the Zoom as well, instead of the roundabout way.
It's a growing relationship.
You guys can all ask. The answer is always going to be yes. So thank you for having me. Enjoy the draft week. It's always a fun week. It's hope. Everyone's able to win the Super Bowl right now.
Yes, we can.
How you get there.